left, right.
A decade ago, 2 decades ago, 50 years ago, we all made predictions what the year 2024 would look like. Well, we discuss in this episode what some of those predictions were, what came true, what was early, what hasn't happened yet, and what is very unlikely to happen. Enjoy. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Crisis film.
Cheers.
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 All right, we are live. This is Sip Talk, episode 240. My name is Justin DiGiulio, out of my office in my house in New Jersey, joined by James, the Bosnator Boswell, philosopher, philanderer, philanthropist, philatelist, a man of a very high pH. James, how's it hanging down there in South Carolina?
Dude, I'm so ready for winter to be over. Like, I want to exercise more, but when it's 45 degrees outside, I don't.
Dude, I'm feeling the same way. I've been. So I took like basically a month off of working out because I did a fast, like real fast, no food for a week. And then I did no alcohol for the remainder of the month, obviously no alcohol in the first week. And I didn't do any exercises for a whole month, which is probably the longest of my life. I've never done any real exercise. And now I'm like ready to go, but I can't fucking run outside because there's ice on the sidewalks. People don't plow the sidewalks. I've been exercising in my basement, which you see my gym in the basement. I got a pretty solid gym, but I like to run, man. I'll do some bicycle riding. I'll do some running. You can't do that. I have a bike in my basement, but it's not the same as a real bicycle.
No, I've got a stationary, I've got a little like magnetic trainer that I can put my road bike on and turn my road bike into a stationary bike, and it's miserable because like you're just not going anywhere.
Not the same thing. It's not the same thing. So I got to ask you. This is Sip Talk. I'm back off the wagon here. I got some whiskey. I got a nice IPA. What are you drinking down there?
I've got a Bush Ice to start things off, and I want to say hi to Shariaba joining us after a long time away.
Yeah, we have
So it's
not
good to have her back.
We have not seen Shahira lately, but we are here and we're.
Let's talk about what are we going to be talking about tonight.
Let's talk about what are we going to be talking about. So tonight we're going to be talking about vasectomies, and we're going to be talking about predictions for 2024 from 10 years ago, which I think is a pretty cool perspective to take on today.
Spoiler alert: we're going to be talking a lot about AI.
Well, because AI is just like it's in the zeitgeist right now. It's like AI is all we're talking about because it seems to be so preoccupying the future and the immediate future. You know, we start talking about self-driving cars. We start talking about flying cars. We start talking about computers. It all links back to AI. AI is basically this omnipresent thing, which is where the internet was 25 years ago. You and I have talked about this before, how the internet is now involved in everything. You know, there's that funny clip that you see from like Good Morning America. They're like, what is this email thing, this @ symbol? What is this @ symbol? Apparently it's on the internet. People are sending mail but by the internet. What's the internet?
I haven't seen that, but yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I mean, there's still people that don't understand that shit.
Well, either way, the internet is obviously part of everything today. My oven, my coffee maker, my toaster, my stove. That's called the Internet of Things. These things.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just go ahead and say, like, all of that, like, purchasing a smart oven or a smart toaster is moronic. And yes, that's lobbed at you.
Listen, I bought some real premium appliances with this new house, and obviously we rebuilt. You know this because you've been here. We rebuilt the kitchen from the ground up. I tore out a kitchen from the 1950s, and I put in the most state of the art appliances. I think our oven was like $6,000 to $8,000, just the oven itself. But I was very particular with the products that we got because I didn't have products that were going to be limited. I did not want to have products that were going to be limited in the future by the technology that they have today.
Yeah,
So
but like,
I still did because, but one of the big things was I didn't want to buy any products that had an LCD screen or any screen on it or anything that was limited by a processor, because that processor is going to be processing that much more information 8 years from now. And I don't want to have to go buy a new oven or a new stovetop or a new refrigerator because it can't keep up with processing the information.
right. So, but the thing is,
The information.
why do any of these devices need to process any information whatsoever? That's my point.
Well, let's.
Like, I don't need my refrigerator to think.
Well, did you? So the article that we're going to talk about, this Pew Research article, did you read the article about the predictions from like 10-year-olds from 10 years ago, where they're saying, I'm not going to need to go shopping. My refrigerator is just going to auto replenish itself.
No, I didn't read that article.
It was the same article. I just don't think you read the entire thing.
No, I skimmed it. I've already been very clear about this. Where like the article, like hold on, real quick. I want to hit Kevin's comments, which you can't see. Is like AI has been in the media hype cycle arguably longer than the internet, because
And
like
AI goes back to Terminator 1. All right. So AI is not a new thing. AI is not a new thing. It's just
it's
much
really
more in.
only. Well, I mean, there's two types of AI. There's the general AI and the specific AI. So if you think about like when Deep Blue beat Kasparov back in 1996,
Actually
that was a
specific AI.
specific AI. It's like this computer can only do one thing, and that's play chess well. Like
Well,
if you
here's
ask
the
the
issue.
computer to
You
do other
connect
things,
you connect the specific AI of chess. You connect the specific AI of helping you cook food. You connect the specific AI of auto repair. You connect the specific AI of language use.
you
Right?
still don't get to a general AI.
Well,
That's
when you
still
when
not
you
like,
get to when you get to language learning and learning AI, and you incorporate all of these, now you have an AI that is effectively better at anything than any one person and better at more than any one person.
yeah, but it's still like
But
a
then you have a
general AI.
conversation,
The
then you have
idea
a
behind it
conversation
is
with it,
that
and
you
it
should
doesn't
be able
pass.
to ask it to do just about any task, and it can do it even if it hasn't done it before.
Well,
Whereas with a specific AI, it can't do anything outside of its narrow range.
and that's where we hit. I didn't even think we were going to talk about the Turing test, but do you want to explain what the Turing test is and why people like you and I look at AI in its current state and go, we're a long ways away.
Well, really quick, because like this is already pulling us a little off topic, but the Turing test is basically
Because we got to get back to vasectomy.
well, I mean, yeah, we'll get there.
Right,
Turing
right.
test is going to be you put a person in front of a computer panel and they're having a conversation by text with like the screen, and the Turing test is, can you design a computer program to have that conversation with somebody so that the person who's having the conversation can't tell that it's an AI. So you could put a person on the other side of it and they're typing, and you should be able to tell like that they're a person. Can you program a computer well enough that they can emulate a person so that the average person can't tell that they're a computer?
And I mean, I was asking Chat GPT today questions, and I kept asking different versions of the question. It was very clear to me that Chat GPT did not understand. And I asked several versions of the same question. ChatGPT just did not understand what I was trying to ask. And what I was saying was, I need this information. I need specific sources of the information. And it was just not giving. And I was like, can you please cite the sources of the data? And it was just not answering my question directly, which maybe means that ChatGPT would make a great politician. But
I
so
don't think.
where do you
I
want to
mean, we'll
start
get
here?
there in the ethics discussion,
Where,
but
where do you want to start here with our conversation about predictions from the past and effectively where we're going with the conversation?
all
Which
right.
will
Well,
figure
predictions
that out.
from the past. Basically, I skimmed through this Pew Research article, and it seemed to me like the people that were making their predictions from 10 years ago were were very big on the idea that AI and robotics were going to be a part of everyday life and heavily integrated into just about everything we do in 2024. And I think that they just over predicted the successes of AI, especially when it comes to both market penetration and and in specific circumstances the capabilities that we would be able to realize from AI. And that would be the example I'm going to use is self-driving cars, where in the Pew Research article, their prediction from 10 years ago was that we'd be pretty much there on self-driving car technology. And watch any videos from San Francisco, and you can tell that we are very much not there with
Let me ask you this.
self-driving
Let me
cars.
ask you this: if you were to reverse, if we were to be having, and we've been doing this podcast since 2019. I think you joined in 2020, but that's almost 5 years ago, 4 years ago since you've been here. Let's double that time to 2000. So not 2019. It's now 2024. Go back 5 years. 2019. Go back 5 more years. 2014. 2014 you're sitting around, you're hanging out at the bar, you're playing some pool, you're talking about your friends, somebody starts talking about robots, the future, or AI, or they're pissed off because they ran out of toilet paper and they're saying in the future we're not going to have to fucking order toilet paper. What were your conversations 10 years ago, specifically speaking, on 10 years in the future? What were those conversations about? Because my guess is 10 years ago, AI was really not a prevalent topic. Self-driving cars,
It
sure.
wasn't. I wasn't really talking about AI very much at all, with the
But
exception of of one particular game that I was playing that was being actively developed in AI.
well, you and I have some experience for almost 30 years going back to specific AI when it comes to playing video games, right? You and I now you can log into Twitch, which by the way we are live on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can make comments on those platforms and we can read them. If you're watching on TikTok or Instagram, we really can't see your comments. So if you're watching on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, we can see your comments. So don't forget to join us there. Twitch today, Twitch got popular because people used to take videos of their video games and post them on there.
They still do that.
They still, yeah. But you and I, 20 years prior to Twitch being popular, used to put video games on computer versus computer and watch the video games like fucking weirdos at 12 years old and pay attention to what the computers were doing. and we watched it. And that was AI versus AI.
Yeah. I remember we'd play Super Smash Brothers, and we would just set up 99 stock of all the different and make let the CPUs run while we fell asleep and see who won.
Which I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed watching how the computers, because that was our competition. We'd be playing ultimately against a computer. We'd watch how the computer behaved, but that was very specific AI, and that was almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, let's talk, because unless you have more to talk about the Pew Research article, I just think they thought that we would be farther along than we are, but they were correct in that AI would be more important in the future than it was at the time. But I think they just were overly optimistic. Like the current says, and I saw this. This is not my quote, but I wish it was. AI today is kind of like a reverse Hitler. We're sitting around wondering when it's going to kill us all, and instead, all it's doing is making art.
That's and where's this comment from?
I got it from the Reddits.
So the thing is, I feel like 10 years ago we were not talking about, and we were not talking about AI in the way that it exists now. But I also feel like we were talking about AI. Your next bullet point here is self-driving cars, and then the following bullet point is art. And I think that you and I can both agree that the AI behind self-driving cars is still very far away. Now, the cool thing about AI is that it learns exponentially.
Yeah, but
Theoretically.
yeah, I don't think you're really seeing that with self-driving cars.
because there's so much to learn. So to
I
learn,
feel like
so hold
self-driving
on.
cars
To learn
AI is
something
moving
exponentially,
asymptotically.
something exponentially, you first have to learn the foundation and you have to learn the math at the rudimental level. And the issue with driving is that at the very base level, there's an insane amount of variables. So
Well, and also if you think about it, for someone, let's say you've never driven a car before. You're 16 and you've never driven a car and you just get your learner's permit, right? Like you've been around cars, you've been around driving, you've been a passenger in a car or a bus some innumerable number of hours, right?
yeah, you watch the roads, you watch the reaction of the driver of the vehicle, you see people on the street, you know what inertia feels like, you know what hard braking feels like, you know what it's like to drive at nighttime.
But you also have an intuitive sense of like what is the goal of driving and what are the mistakes to avoid. Even if you're not skilled enough to avoid them yet because you haven't actually driven a car, you have a really firm grasp of the goal. And the problem with generalized AI, especially when it comes to driving, is that it's very hard to program in something as diffuse as the goal of driving. Because if
Well,
you say
if
the
you
goal of driving is to get from the car from here to there, that's not gonna work.
well, let's back up and explain computer programming.
No, 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 no. Like I
No, no, I think that that's a crucial part of the understanding of what AI is that you're basically running algorithms, right? Like you have to have every mathematical problem within AI, which is effectively what AI is. It's kind of running algorithms, has to have an outcome, right? You're inputting data into an algorithm, and
well,
then
and you could think about it just like a long series of if change, where you're basically
well,
having
if
a
and then
rule.
is where I was
If
going.
this, then this. If this, then this. Go on and on forever. And
Exactly, but forever is that's the issue. Is you have this infinite number of ifs and this infinite number of thens, and each if may have some of the not each, but many of the ifs may have multiple thens.
right, and that's the problem is like for some things it's very easy to program like with ifs and thens, but for something as loose as driving, it's really difficult to do. But I want to move on from this. I want because like I've got a ton of stuff about ethics that we like.
I want to get to ethics and AI, and we're really we're there's no main vein of our conversation about speaking of main vein and vasectomy. There's no main vein about our conversation about the future. I think we're really just going to end up on this tangent of AI, and I feel like ethics is the conversation that we've been having for the last year and a half, and I think is going to become more prevalent as AI becomes more prevalent.
Well, all the ethical questions related to AI are going to be the obstacles that prevent it from moving forward. And you can have an interesting discussion about whether or not those obstacles should exist and how much we should prevent AI from moving forward in the name of various ethical objections. But that ultimately the technology is going to be there, and the question is going to be how willing we are to use it and what barriers we're going to press or break in the name of advancing AI against ethics.
Well, do you want to back up a little bit? Because I mentioned earlier we're talking about vasectomies and future predictions from 10 years ago. Do you want to back up and maybe edge your way into ethics and vasectomy?
Well, I mean, I've got a vasectomy scheduled in 10 days.
Okay. You and I have talked about this for a little while, about it being a big decision.
It
And
is.
it doesn't necessarily need to be a big decision because it's not super permanent. While it's relatively permanent, it's not super permanent. But the moment, so we have a lot of medical procedures right now happening with robotics involved, and robotics these days comes with a generous serving of AI. Now, robotic automated automated robotics are not performing the surgeries. But
I can tell you right now, of all the surgeries to have done robotically or with AI, vasectomy ranks at the absolute bottom of ones
but
I'd be willing to do.
I think your comment here that is your vasectomy being performed by an AI doctor? The moment we train AI to perform sterilization procedures on people is the moment we see the robotic apocalypse in motion. So basically, the moment that we can train robots to sterilize humans, we are fucked as a race.
Yeah, it's a really bad idea.
And from there, the conversation makes a couple minor leaps, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind into the ethics of artificial intelligence, and it's wild to think about. It's truly wild to think about. Once we can train robots to do something that we can't necessarily stop, right? You have a more powerful force. I don't think anybody would argue with me when we say that a robot is more powerful than a human when it comes to the mechanics of a robot, right? You walk into a factory, you can get crushed by some automated mechanics happening in that factory, right? Now, you could argue that humans are smarter in the sense that they can influence the robotics from a coding standpoint. But once you have language learning robots that can program themselves, they could theoretically lock out humans.
Well, this gets to the black box problem.
Okay. Are we getting, is that further on in your notes here? Are we skipping ahead?
Yeah, well, I mean, since you're talking about this, what you're touching on and getting to is the idea that this black box problem in AI,
Which is,
which is
that you have a robotic artificial intelligence. You have artificial intelligence, and it is out of touch of humans. Humans can no longer influence it. Am I on?
not entirely. It's more like, so you take a normal program, a traditional program, take Microsoft Excel, right?
Let's do Oregon Trail.
Fine, Oregon Trail.
Right.
Like, you can, like, every single line of that program was written by a person. So when something weird happens in the program, there's a bug or something, it behaves in a way that you don't quite understand. In theory, you should be able to look at the code and try and figure out what went wrong, because you had somebody write that, they know what they wrote and there's a reason for it. It might have been erroneous, but like, you can explain it. Now, when you program some of these like machine learning algorithms where the AI is basically allowed to rewrite and edit its own code, pretty quickly you can get to a point where you're getting results from the model that don't necessarily make sense, but since they weren't written by a person, they were just written by a process. You can very quickly get to a point where even the programmers don't understand how the program works. And that makes it very difficult to, if you're getting results out of the program that you don't want and you want to change that, then it's very difficult to edit if you don't understand the program itself. And you could run into that, and the people have run into that, where like the programmers can no longer explain what the AI is doing.
Okay.
And when it comes to, because
Well,
one of the biggest issues with AI is we want to make sure that we remain in control of it. Because as soon as we lose control of it, like, obviously it's not powerful enough today, but we can foresee a future where maybe AI gets powerful enough that if we don't control it, bad things can happen. So we always need to be able to stay one step ahead of AI, at least in terms of control. And if we don't understand how the program that's behind the AI is even working, then that makes it very difficult for
but
it to
listen,
control.
once we give autonomy to AI, say we let AI start doing operations, we're out of control. Now we are already out of control with the majority of shit that happens. You have I don't know if you watch the Discovery ID channel where you see nurses who kill babies, you see doctors who perform operations and end up killing or paralyzing people. Effectively, that's an individual that nobody has any control over. You sign a contract with him to do X job. He performs X job poorly. That's what AI is, right? You're signing a contract. Effectively, you're electing AI to make a decision, and you are out of that control. Now, at a greater scale, AI has a lot. You could have one AI performing operations, and then that same AI creating legislation and deciding. It could be the executive branch and the judicial branch simultaneously.
Well, I mean, that's if we give the power to, if
Well,
we decide to allow AI to start
theory
working in
alone,
like
but
legal or legislative matters, which we haven't done yet.
point is, you know, when you go in for an operation, you basically you go neck up, wrists up, and say, "All right, I'm yours. Keep me alive," right?
Well,
And
I
you're
mean, yeah,
talking to a
especially if
person.
you're put under, you have no
Well,
agency.
yeah, you're talking to a person. Yeah, you have no agency if you're out. If you're awake, also you're still neck out, wrists up. And that's with a person, and you know nothing about that person. You don't know what's going on in their family life. You know what's going on in their personal or sometimes even business life. With AI, that's interconnected with so many other things, and all that shit's out of your control. What do you want to hit next? You want to move?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's basically how can we monitor AI to make sure it stays within the parameters it was originally intended?
I mean, we're trying to monitor social media. We have centers set up to review every flagged post on Twitter or Facebook, and we are failing at that.
All right, we got a comment from Ashley Rowland. She says, "I do believe at some point AI can surpass us. What happens when it starts to think for itself and starts making its own decisions?" Which I think I want to that kind of touches on one of the ethical questions that I had down, which is, will there ever be a point where an AI can be considered to have like a sort of personhood or sentience? And like, how would we know? How would that change the way that we treat the AI? And then would that change like our ethical like rules in terms of how we deal with the AI if we determine that the AI is a person? Because like, would shutting down the server constitute some kind of murder? I don't know the answer to these questions.
I watch a lot of these movies about transcendence, about people basically putting themselves within AI. I watch this TV show called Upload, where basically he takes his sentience down, chops his head off, and downloads his sentience into a computer, and then he's basically within that computer. And then season 2, he downloads. They basically build a body for him. Right, they build an organic body for him, and then download what was back online, his online backup, back into the brain of the human, and he goes back out into the real world, which is crazy. I see that as very probable. I see us having an AI robot or program, and people defending it. I mean, think about ChatGPT. All of a sudden, ChatGPT drops its you're communicating with a AI language based learning model. I can only tell you so much, and then it slowly we have stops in place basically from it transcending to that, where it starts building relationships with people, and then it builds a couple thousand relationships with a couple thousand people. Then it builds a few million relationships with a few million different people, and now you've got a few million people saying, "This is my lover. This is my best friend."
You already have some people that have AI boyfriends or girlfriends.
Don't let it go. You'd be destroying my life by destroying my. I mean, you have people bring fucking ostriches on planes saying this is my fucking service animal.
Well, I mean, not quite that extreme.
You know, you have people bringing pigs and
Pigs, yes.
and
I've heard of like tarantulas, which if I was on that flight, I'd be like, "You're gonna need to kick this person off or rebook me because I'm
like,
not going on a plane with a tarantula."
I don't know if you heard a couple of weeks ago, somebody had brought some food, some meat with them, and maggots started falling from the overhead container onto people. And the
Yeah,
flight would turn around. It's fucking insane.
yeah, that
On,
person needs to pay for everybody's ticket on that plane.
on that note, we got bar trivia answer from last week coming up shortly, and we're gonna have a new trivia question once James can get distracted enough to figure out that question. He doesn't know, but he's on the spot for that trivia question. But I don't want to lose our direction, but basically we're talking about the sentience of, at some point AI is going to surpass us. What happens when we recognize AI as an independent being, which I think we will. And even if we don't, even if and remember, in this country, at least the US, it's not the majority that make the laws and the regulations. It is the loud minority. I don't mean minority as in brown or black people, or numbers wise minority. What I mean is that it is the loudest people, the protesting people, that make the laws right now, because the vast majority of Americans are not concerned with voting. They're not concerned with midterm elections. They're not concerned with day-to-day policy. They vote presidential elections every 4 years at best. But your day-to-day legislation is being proposed by the loudest minority, which is just the loudest people.
Because they're the most engaged.
Well, that's the point. Is they are the most engaged. They're loud. That's loud is a synonym for engaged in this example.
All right, I want to talk real quick. So here's another ethical question about AI and bias, which is the way that AI is trained can very easily introduce bias. And like, here's a quick example, and I believe it was Amazon that did this, but I might be wrong, where a company used AI to sort through resumes for new hires, and very quickly they found that like almost all the resumes that were being returned were men. Like almost no female resumes were coming through this program. And the reason for it was because they trained the program based on the resumes of people that had already been hired. And the program saw that more men were hired than women. And so somehow in the way it was trained, the AI basically said only select resumes from men. And like you've got all sorts of issues with, like, if we're not aware of bias or whatever, AI can help amplify it if we use it wrong.
So that's the issue with AI, is that AI is incredible. However, it is often short-sighted, just as humans are short-sighted. I mean, humans could have created the same
problem is that
algorithm,
we
but
give
they
deference
probably
to
would've
AI,
caught-
whereas we don't give the same deference to humans.
well, humans probably would have caught on to that sooner. Now, obviously, a human can look at this great majority of data from whatever the Amazon or wherever that data that you're citing originated. Somebody can take a distant perspective and say, well, hold up, it's all men. But if you're just running an algorithm, there is no distance perspective.
Well, it's
And
also
humans can be running that algorithm on their own, simultaneously being like, yo, wait, I just put 90 dudes through. I haven't heard a female name in 3 days. Like,
here's the reason is, like, in most cases we assume that like everybody that we deal with is biased in some way, and like not in a nefarious way. We just know that everybody is going to have their own personal biases, and we generally act in response to people as though that they have some sort of a bias. And so when we get results that don't necessarily make sense, like bias is one of the first things that we think of to try and explain why we're getting results that are weird. And there are very few professions or people where we have an expectation from them of being non-biased. Whereas with AI, it's the opposite, where we think because this is a computer program, it can't be biased. And that's just not true.
well, you and I don't think like that.
But you know,
but most people just think, oh, it's clandestine. It's a program. It's, it can do no wrong. I think
that's what I'm saying, is that there's the general perception of AI is that it's going to be neutral and unbiased, whereas in reality, it really can be.
Well, the thing is, people don't even on their own account for their own bias. So you and I have talked about this a lot. I teach a class every Thursday morning about sales. Today, I taught a class. We're talking about sales, and I was talking about how important it is to understand what people think of you. and that starts on the phone. So basically, you get on the phone with your client. You need to understand what your client thinks of you in the first 5 seconds of the phone call. So what I did to illustrate this point was I isolated two different audio, roughly 4 seconds of two different audio feeds, and I don't think I have them on this computer. I'd love to play them for you, and I don't have them here. But one was a soft-spoken woman who would like you to get prepared to encounter what she's ready to share with you. And the other was a man from a different country in Asia, and he wanted to tell you about something he would like to offer you. And what I did in my meeting this morning was I played both audios, and I said, I want you to picture who this person is in your mind and tell me. We went around the room, and different people had different opinions. And I said, listen, it doesn't matter what your opinion is. It doesn't matter what your opinion is. All it is prejudice. You're going based off of what you know, what you're relating this voice to mean, right? In your background. Maybe you heard an Indian person. Maybe you heard a British person. Maybe you heard it, whatever. One person was a yoga instructor, and the other person was a voice coach. But what you imagine this person to be in your mind is your own prejudice. So you need to be able to account for that. However, and I went on with the training to say, when you are speaking with your clients on the phone, you need to understand what factors influence how they perceive you. Right. But I just gave two obvious examples with a hard Indian accent and then a yoga instructor. Hello, everyone. It's important that you relax today. I want you to see the other side of the spectrum of reality. But I also tried to account for the content of what they're saying as well. So I kind of cut it mid-sentence. Let's move forward here. Before I digress too much, I'm biased.
So I got some stuff about like AI art, which is like,
okay, yeah.
So Kevin says, like, if you train AI on Hitler's artwork, you shouldn't be surprised when the results come back looking like Hitler's artwork. And like, this is a while back, but like they actually trained a computer, I think, on Rembrandt.
Mm-hmm.
And like the AI created paintings that were very much in the style of Rembrandt. And the question is, like, who's the author here? Because, like, if I'm the person who has a particular style, like, let's just imagine imagine I'm Picasso, right? And he had a certain style. And then you trained AI on my artwork, and then AI starts turning out a whole bunch of stuff that looks a lot like the style that I pioneered. Do I get credit for that because the AI was trained on something that I did? Or does the AI itself get credit? Do the programmers get credit? Who gets the credit? Who gets the royalties for sales of this artwork?
So that's the biggest issue right now is that our last episode we did on what was it about? It was about generational divides. What I wanted to do was feed that information to AI and say, write me an article that's a 9-minute read with this information. Now, a lot of the information here came from AI. I'm going to feed it back to AI, have it write me an article. I'm going to be the author. I'm going to cite AI as a helper. Now, I never came up with any of that information. I just effectively researched it and then fed it back into AI. Do you see balloons in my background?
Yeah, what the hell?
I did this, and then balloons showed up. I researched it.
No, let's not spend too much time trying to recreate it.
I don't know, balloons just showed up in my back. But let me tell you let me give you a scenario. So you just gave a scenario where you let AI review every Rembrandt painting. You say, paint me a picture of Batman in Rembrandt style.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you get an output, and it's a Batman image in the style of Rembrandt, which is wild and unique in the style of Rembrandt. Should Rembrandt get paid for this?
I mean, I would argue yes. Like,
So
because
here's the other side of that argument is Rembrandt went to school. I don't know much about Rembrandt. He went to school. He studied that of the artists before him. He studied the history of artistry, and he started painting. And then his teacher said, "No, you know what? I think there's not enough shadow, and you need a little more introspection in the painting." Um, and then he tuned up his paintings, and he had that introspection. He had that shadowing, and he had this one style, which was a similar style to an artist that he saw when he was younger, but he just couldn't do it. So this is the best that he could do. And fast forward 400 paintings, and you have these images that Rembrandt created that are somebody else's style that he couldn't quite do with the direction from his art teacher.
yeah, but at some point it becomes his own style. Real quick, so Kevin says from a legal perspective, content created by a program can't be copyrighted, and the AI could be copyrighted with the rights belonging to the authors of the AI.
So, but my point is that
But
you
he
have
also
the
says like the any art created by the AI basically belongs to nobody.
exactly, unless of course you yourself make adjustments to it, and then you can claim that copyright. So, point being is that if if you teach me, James, everything you know, and then I know if I know zero, and you teach me everything you know, and I go out and start practicing everything you taught me, is it mine or yours?
It's ultimately yours.
Well, now what if I start incorporating some other things that in my by the way, my content is unique. I'm not creating a Mona Lisa picture that is identical to yours. I'm creating a different Mona Lisa.
Right. And so I guess if someone is using AI to create art and it was trained on like specific artists and now they're making money, like they weren't creative, they just created a program or used an existing program to kind of copy the style of others. Like I don't really see how somebody should be able to profit off of basically the creativity of others.
Well, that's where the argument is. You have creativity of somebody else in the past, and you use that as an influence to what you're making now. And just because we can make it without a person involved, and we can make it fast, does that mean we're stealing from that other person? I don't think so. I don't
I
think
mean
so.
that's that's where the argument is, and
Well, that's Banksy, right? Banksy draws some shit in the side of somebody's building. The building owner doesn't say, I own the copyright to this. This is my building. And a lot of times the building owner frames it.
yeah, and
It is.
sometimes they'll like peel off that part of the building, try and keep it intact, and then send it to an auction and make a couple $1,000,000.
Mhm. And the building owner effectively owned that part of the building beforehand.
But that's also because of the way in which Banksy operates, where like he's not doing this for money. It's just that like in a very postmodern way, the very people that Banksy is criticizing in his works are the ones that are profiting off of it.
And he continues to do what he does.
Yeah, because the people that really appreciate Banksy stuff aren't the people that are buying it.
Mhm. Mhm. But Banksy and I think, really operate very similarly.
I
Out of
disagree. Banksy has a style and like he's doing stencil spray paints with like but the thing is he's the one creating the stencils.
No, I think AI is the one creating the images. It's just that AI has more versatility because it's coming out in a digital platform, whereas the output of Banksy is spray paint and stencil. I think they both occupy the same role. It's just the versatility of AI is greater.
All right, next ethical question. And we've talked about this a little bit before. So there's kind of universal agreement that AI is going to displace jobs and
Mhm.
continue to do so at an increasing rate. And the question is, what do we do for the people who used to work in fields that are now dominated or have been wholly replaced by AI? Like, and also, you're going to have fields that AI takes over, that like one business and maybe even like one person owns the rights to that AI. And so you could have kind of a tremendous concentration of wealth when AI replaces an entire industry and only one company or person owns the rights to that AI. And so what do we do with like these gains in productivity that are probably going to be concentrated in a decreasing number of people? Do we redistribute those productivity gains and profits by taxation or other means? Like, what do we do about this?
So
Because you could conceivably see a future where like the vast majority of people don't have a job and can't get a job, and very few people control basically 100% of the production in the world and are able to profit from AI and robots, whereas most people aren't even able to work.
well, listen,
What do you do?
we're not there yet.
No, we aren't.
Okay? And I think what we need to do is take it step by step. And what we will see is that the rich get infinitely richer. Like that, there's no way around that, right? The people who have are going to continue to have more. But what I'm thinking, like at an intrinsic level, like just what you gave me was 100 years ago, 120 years ago, you had in Manhattan, which I'm in the city, you had in Manhattan, you had horse-drawn cars, horse-drawn carriages, and you had a whole industry around horses. And you had not just a whole industry around horses and breeding horses and selling horses and feeding horses, right? There's a whole industry around feeding horses. There was a whole industry around getting the food. So basically, you owned a business where you brought food to horses. And guess what? You were fucking rich. You made loads of money feeding the horse. You bought food from a farm. You bought grain or whatever from a farm, and you brought it into the city for the horses that were stuck in the city that lived in the pens inside the city. And guess what? There's a whole nother industry based on shipping out the shit of the horses.
You bring the poop back to the farm.
You bring the poop out of the city. Now, actually, and this is a Neil deGrasse Tyson point, actually, because he talks about this. He says the same dumb shit all the time. I like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but he
He's
lays
aggravating.
he lays this on you like it's mind blowing. You're like, no, it's not mind blowing. But basically, at a certain point in time, what happened was we had so many horse-drawn carriages in the city, the horses were shitting all over the place. And now, how do you deal with horse shit? Well, you got to scoop it up and ship it out of the city. Now, how do you scoop it up and ship it out of the city? You have horses. You scoop it up and you have horses that carry it out of the city, right? You didn't have hovercrafts or cars or buses. You had other horses that would come into the city, scoop horse shit up, and carry it out of the city. Now, at a certain point, the horses coming into the city to scrape up the horse shit that was left in the city, we ran into a problem where the horses coming in to scoop up the shit were producing so much shit that they weren't solving the problem. So we actually had a giant buildup of horse shit. And what we did was we would ship that horse shit out to New Jersey, out to Long Island to fertilize the land. But we
And
only had
that's
so
how
much
New Jersey came to be.
that New Jersey is built on yeah, exactly. So but
It all
point is,
makes sense.
they ran out of places to deliver this horse shit. Okay. And we were just inundated with horse shit. And how did we solve this problem? We had this problem, so much horse shit, it smelled bad. There was bugs, there was insects, rodents. How do we solve the problem? What were we going to do? The world's coming to an end. We had so much horse shit, we were drowning in it. And then the advent of the automobile.
Well, the subway, really.
Well, the advent of the automobile really is what segued out of the
Yeah, but also the subway. And the subway came before cars were really popular.
Sure, but people had cars over the subway, and what happened was this problem just went away.
Yeah, and then a different problem came about.
So, and now we have new problems. So what you're saying is that AI is going to take over a lot of jobs, and it is. Right? We're going to run into this situation where AI takes over a whole bunch of jobs. I think the short side. Now I agree with you, and I'm afraid. I'm scared. The short-sightedness factor of this is that there are going to be other roles and other jobs that will arise that we don't fucking know what they are yet. We don't know what the fuck they are yet.
Yeah, the problem is
Let
that
me give you an example. You have these server farms, and somebody's got to monitor them.
right, and you stopped me before making the point that I'm going to make to like the server farm, the person who's monitoring the server farm is if that server farm is displacing 1,000 jobs, and you only need 3 or 4 people to monitor the server farm to make sure that like temperatures are in spec and like none of the servers go down or whatever. Like sure, monitoring the server farm is a new job, but you've got 900 something people who don't have a job and 3 or 4 new people who do.
Yep. However, I predict there's going to be other things that open up. And let me tell you, we got
10 minutes.
roughly 10 minutes left. I'm about to do an episode on the new Apple Vision Quest Max Pro situation. I don't know if you see it over here in my peripheral here. I got this Apple iQuest thing. You basically put it on your face and it transports you to a virtual reality.
Of course you bought one.
Of course I did. I'm also working on buying a Windows computer. However, I'm not a big fan of buying a VR headset. The idea of spending time in VR to me is insane. I like driving a manual transmission car. I hate sending text messages and having the internet on my phone. I really like just living kind of old school life. I like living. I like doing. I like doing shit on my own. I like working my own car. I like building my own shit. I like cooking shit from the basic ingredients up.
For someone who proclaims to dislike all of these things, you still seem to buy a shitload of them. And what doesn't make any sense to me is how you can proclaim this stance, but like you own infinitely more of this kind of stuff than I do.
Yeah. So yeah, you're totally right. How do I as a fundamental of my persona say I don't like this stuff? I don't want to have a toaster oven that does this. I don't want to have an oven that does this. One of the biggest things for me in buying, I mean, I probably spent like 40 grand in appliances renovating this house. That's not even counting the renovation, just the appliances alone. And there were some things I didn't take the option on. There was something like I put in a driveway, which I'm not factoring into that number. It was more than that number. I put in the driveway. I had the option to do a heated driveway, and I said, you know what? We don't get that much snow. I'm not going to do a heated driveway. Bear in mind, we had fucking 9 inches the other day, and I was out fucking 5 hours shoveling the shit on my driveway. But buying these products, I said, you know what? I want to have the most up-to-date product with the minimal amount of technology in it. And I ended up the biggest concession for me was ending up with a double oven. So I got it's an oven up top with French doors and an oven on the bottom with the regular door. And the oven costs a lot of money, but it does have a touchscreen monitor on it. That was the biggest concession I took. Now, I like old school shit. I don't think I will ever buy a daily driver or regular car that's fully electric or that drives itself, because I live in an era that I kind of see both sides of it. I enjoy driving. I enjoy shifting. I enjoy the smell of gasoline. I love the smell of fresh cut grass with the smell of that lawnmower. I love water skiing. When you see the water and you can see in the water, the ripples of that water, you can see the gasoline flowing out because you spilled a little bit. You can smell the gasoline outside of that engine. And I know it's bad. But for me, it's part of me. I really like seeing that. Now, I like waking up and taking a piss and changing my clothes and having a shower and shave my face every day, shave my head every day, have to cook breakfast, make coffee. And I love the high points in the day. I love the low points of the day. Listen to me. I want nothing to do with VR. I don't want to exist in a virtual reality world. I like working out. I like being slightly out of shape where I have to work out to be in shape. Now, if I'm in VR, you don't have to deal with any of that shit. You have to wake up and feel like shit. You don't have to shave your head. You don't have to do sit ups. You have to eat healthy. You don't have to deal with any of that shit. If you're out of shape, your life sucks. Guess what? You can join VR. If you can buy the credits, you can buy the outfit, you can buy the relationships, you can buy the clout, you can buy whatever the fuck you want to do. It's not for me. However, this new platform came out, this new audio vision Apple Quest bullshit thing, and I said, you know what? I tried the Facebook Meta Quest. I didn't like it. I got this thing 2 weeks ago. I put it on my face, and I started it up. And guess what?
Chicken butt.
About 9 seconds in having it on my face, I thought to myself, "Holy fuck! Holy fuck! This is the future." I didn't like it. I don't like it. I've had it for 2 weeks. I've probably had it on my face less than an hour, which is for buying a $3,500 piece of technology, a very low amount of time to be engaged with it. But it has been very clear to me that this is the future of interaction with computers.
What's clear to me is that you are a slave to the marketing team of Apple.
Listen, I buy everything. I remember being kids and your mom said something about your younger brother, how he was a master consumer or something like that.
Yep.
He was a master consumer. I am also that person. However, um, I'm also aware of my consumer habits and tendencies, and I don't use this thing, but I know
Well,
all
then
about it.
return it.
And there's no way I'm returning it because this is the future of computing.
No, it's not.
That's your opinion right now. It's February 22nd, 2024. You think that people are not going to end up in virtual reality? I am telling you, using this thing for less than a couple hours, this is where everyone is going to be in 10 years. So
I'm going to tell you why it's not going to be the future of computing, and and it's not even difficult to prove. The person sitting on the other side of my screen right now is talking about how this thing is the future of computing, yet they've only used it 1 hour in 2 weeks. Like your
I
own
can tell you,
behavior,
listen,
disproves your argument.
no,
It's
that's because I'm so well reserved. And this comes from somebody who has done a number of drugs and smoked a lot of cigarettes and doesn't have that quality in them to like need to do it again. But I can tell you, you smoke a cigarette, you do certain drugs, you're like, fuck, I got to do this again. That's this thing. That's this thing. I'm telling you. I'm
no, it's
telling
not.
you. You haven't used it. You haven't used it. So I guess we got to read a comment real quick, and then I want to hit this trivia. What is the comment? Because I can't fucking see it from over here. Only dudes who don't get pussy are buying into that. Well, I would argue with you on that, Sasha. I don't know which Sasha you are, but if you're one of a couple of Sashas, you're not talking to me. So last week's trivia question: in Canada, it is illegal to bury a man who lives in the United States. Why is that? Well, you know why that is, James?
I'm guessing because they're in the United States.
That's one. That's one perspective. Uh, First things first. Yeah, you can't really bury somebody who lives a few hundred miles away, but also it's tough to bury somebody who's living. So yeah, it's illegal in Canada to bury people who are alive.
Mm.
Hmm, hmm. Let me introduce to you the trivia question for episode 240. Marion bought 4 oranges and 4 lemons for 90 cents. The next day, she bought 3 oranges and 4 lemons for 85 cents. How much did each lemon and each orange cost? Marion bought 4 oranges and 3 lemons for 90 cents. The next day, she went back to the market. She bought 3 oranges and 4 lemons for 85 cents. How much did each lemon and each orange cost? It's an easy question if you just trial a couple of numbers.
So 4x plus 3y equals 90. 3x plus 4y equals 85.
That's it. We are just about out of time, but I want to tell you, just back to the VR and the headset thing. I put this thing on my face and my jaw dropped, man. I'll have this conversation maybe a few minutes off air. Insane. I'm going to do a whole podcast episode about it. Blew my fucking mind. Now, just for the same,
Can I not be a part of that podcast episode?
You don't have to. No, but for the same reason, like I can get in a self-driving car, think crazy, that's cool, see it being a future, and still want to go back to my manual transmission Porsche that's gasoline driven and prefer that. I can still see how a future is self-driving automated electric cars. On that note, adios, everybody.
All right, were we close? Do we miss anything? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to SipTalk on YouTube and all audio podcast platforms.
I like PBR. I just got priced out of it.